Guys, can you give me 30 seconds if you don't mind? I really appreciate it. Sorry about that, everybody.
Still upset about Jim Garner leaving? That's fine. He can't quite get
Too soon, Jeff.
They all are, clearly.
Folks, I'm very sorry, but I'm good to go. Thank you.
Okay, we all set?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Brian Rayner. I'm a senior air safety investigator with the National Transportation Safety Board. I'm here in response to a helicopter accident that occurred here yesterday afternoon, approximately 12:55 p.m. The helicopter involved was a Eurocopter EC-135 operated by LifeNet. The tail number is November 531, Lima, November. There were 4 occupants on board the helicopter. The pilot was seriously injured. The 2 crew members, a flight medic and a flight nurse, and the patient were not injured in the accident. They were transported safely to area medical facilities. The helicopter was en route from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Preliminary radar data shows the helicopter in just a laser straight course line, steady airspeed and altitude until it reached this local area. We're collecting witness and video evidence that describes the helicopter maneuvering erratically, for lack of a better term, and then descending here to the point you see behind me. Right now I have a very large team of people here on site. I have people off site in Washington, D.C., also working this accident. Before I get into describing the team and their roles, I want to thank the Upper Darby Township for their response to help the occupants, to secure the evidence, ensure the safety of the local residents, the Upper Darby Township Police, the fire department, the Delaware County Emergency Management people, and they will speak to you after I'm done. But it's just been a phenomenal response, and I'm very grateful. The participants in the investigation involved, I have 2 representatives from the FAA here. I have at least 2 working this back at FAA headquarters. I have several experts at the NTSB working this, from air traffic to weather to operations. I'm the only board employee that's here right now. The operator has sent several people from their safety side, their operations side, their maintenance side, and they'll be assisting with the examination of the airplane and, the helicopter, and anything we need to do going forward. The purpose of the group today here behind you is to document the wreckage as found. We're going to look at the components to the degree that we can, because they're sort of mixed together and up against a hard barrier. As we recover the airplane or the helicopter, we'll be looking at components, but we're just going to document the cockpit, the switchology, and all those things here, the major components as found. We're going to do our best to get the helicopter out of here today, and then we'll do a more detailed examination at an off-site location and determine if we need to remove major components and have them examined at the facilities that will help us determine what was going on with them. Engines, transmissions, whatever's required. This is a data gathering phase. As I've explained, the large number of people that are working this, they're all gathering data, and it won't become information until we get it all together in one place and compare it see how things relate and see how things conflict. I'm very grateful that the occupants were relatively unhurt. The pilot is the most significantly injured. The other three, miraculously unhurt. The airplane, while significantly damaged, it is in evidence-wise, it's in very good shape. I have excellent people working with me on this, and so I have a great deal of confidence. No guarantees, of course, but I have a great deal of confidence that when we're done, we'll be able to explain this accident. That's pretty much all I have right now.
You spoken to the pilot, sir?
No, but I'm working on when that's going to make sense. I don't know the exact nature of his injuries or what his status is at the moment, if he's available to speak to, but it's on my list.
Have you spoken to any of the other people on board?
I'm going to answer a question first. The short answer is no. But there are technologies on board that capture data that will help us understand what was going on with the aircraft, at least aircraft performance-wise. I don't know if we're going to get any, flight parameters, heading, airspeed, altitude, pitch. I don't know.
Brian, you said you haven't been able to speak to the pilot yet. You're working on that. Have you been able to speak to the others, especially the other crew members?
No, but again, they're available to me when I need to, and their perspective, they're professionals, and they fly on medevac helicopters for a living. So even though they may not be rated aviators, they have a certain amount of air sense and experience, so they'll probably be able to offer us quite a bit. But they're healthy, they're available, so I'll get to them in due course.
Was the pilot using a radio? Was he calling to anybody, telling he was in trouble?
I don't have that information yet, but it's archived, it's captured, it's recorded, it's in a computer somewhere. I've seen preliminary flight data. I don't have communication data, but I have an air traffic specialist working that as we speak, and she's very, very good. So if it's out there, we'll get it.
So he would have had contact with a air traffic controller at some point, saying that he was in this area. Do you think?
That would be speculation. I would have to look at a map and see what whose airspace he was in and who controlled that airspace, and because it differs depending on where you are, over the ground, and then where you are in the airspace, because it's defined three-dimensionally. So I don't know, but he's very close to Philadelphia International. I don't know if there's local radio traffic at the hospital. I don't know who he was talking to, but the frequencies are tuned up on the instrument panel, and so we'll have an understanding of who he had available, because he's got multiple radios, so he can configure them to speak to several different places and then choose which one he wants to speak to at what time. So, but at this point, I don't know. If he was speaking to anybody, it's recorded. I've got it.
But if you were in trouble, I mean, you're flying a helicopter, you're in trouble.
That would be speculation, sir. I don't know if he transmitted a Mayday call. I have no idea.
Do you have any background on the pilot?
No, not at the moment. But again, he's a professional. He works for a very professional outfit. He's got very, very complete flight records, and they've already been sequestered, as have the maintenance records for the airplane. Basically, we look at these investigations are divided in. I'll describe it as three different parts, like a pie cut into three sections. We look, in this case, the man, the machine, and the environment. Right now, I'm worried about the machine. We're going to look at that. We're going to capture what we can here, up to the point where we need to move the airplane, which we're going to do later today with any luck. We have a live pilot, thank God. We also have a comprehensive set of his training records. So we'll be looking at his total experience. We'll look at his recency of experience. We'll look at how much experience he has in the EC-135, and so on. All these things that, and your questions are all very good, but I'm unconcerned, because I know we have our arms around all of these things, and eventually I'm going to get to them in the order in which I need to get to them. Right now, the most perishable thing is what's important to me. The records are records, and I'll get to them when I get to them.
Brian, yesterday, and I heard you use the word, obviously, this morning, miraculously, the other three were not injured at all, and they all were able to get out even before fire officials, police showed up. I mean, if you can, from your perspective, coming to these kinds of crash sites, the fact that, we're not looking at a charred pile of rubble over there, and the fact that he was able to bring it down, can you speak to that at all? Would you call it a miracle?
I'd rather not. I'll speak to this one particular accident. While it looks, very dramatic, and there is clearly significant damage, the occupiable space inside the aircraft is remarkably intact. I'm certain that everyone was well secured. That's something else we're going to have to determine. It's something that we want to document, is aircraft survivability. I don't know enough about the flight, and I'm not I can't explain the physics, so I don't know how significant the impact was, but what I am is extremely grateful that we have 3 uninjured people from the accident, and while the pilot's injuries are not to be diminished, he too is alive, and we'll be able to speak to him at some point. So I would rather describe my gratitude for that outcome rather than compare this accident to other accidents.
But he dropped that thing there, right? He didn't just, get lucky. Your view is, he could have hit the church. He didn't. He landed in front of the damn thing.
He's a professional pilot, and I'm certain his priorities were the survival of his passengers. How much of this is airmanship? How much, to what degree he had control over the aircraft? That's what we're here to find out. I don't know. But, all credit to him if that's the case. Certainly.
Sir, Brian, you mentioned to the genders of the crew members on board. You're referring to
No,
as male.
I don't know.
You're referring to the pilot at least as a male. If you said
The
he,
pilot, I know the pilot's a male. I believe the flight medic is male. I don't know the genders of the child or the flight nurse. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I haven't gotten to that yet. But again, it's information that's available, and I'll capture it.
Brian, you mentioned part of your data gathering right now. One piece of it is looking at the environment. We're talking about weather, what the winds were.
Well, the environment includes weather, terrain, the air traffic, and then what communications might have been going on inside that airspace. What equipment, what certificates, that sort of thing are required to operate inside that environment. So it's it's a big category.
What's that thing weigh?
Off the top of my head, I don't.
Its value?
I'm sure that's available on the web.
Yeah, sure it is. The child. How's a baby transported in a thing like that? Do you know?
It's something I'm going to have to learn. I'm not a medevac pilot. I don't know. I was for a brief period in the Army, but the equipment and everything has evolved enormously since then. And I was a pilot. I wasn't a flight medic, so I can't speak to that.
Can you just go back over the tail number N5?
Yes, November 531 Lima, November. N531LN.
Ryan, when it comes to such investigations, do federal law enforcement get involved in terms of FBI, things like that? Do they
No, this is right now. This is strictly a safety investigation. All the evidence that we have to this point supports an accident. If there was criminal activity involved, if there was evidence of criminal activity, then those notifications would be made, and if it turned out to be a crime, our chair, the NTSB chair, would be in touch with the director of the FBI, and there's an official transition process to hand cases over. But I'm not an expert in that. I can't speak to it other than I know there is a process, a letter of agreement, or however it works, but there's a formal process to do that, and I don't see that happening here. I think I've covered just about everything else. I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent of emergency management and let he and the fire chief speak to you.
What kind of pilot did you say you were? You fly helicopters, or did you fly planes? Or
Both.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm a retired Army aviator. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Superintendent and chief updates. Thank you.
Brian, real quickly, do you plan to do another update at some point today?
Maybe, close business. You need something before 5 o'clock. So maybe 4-ish, 4:30.
Thank you.
Maybe. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Not much more to update on our part. Again, to my right is Fire Chief Derek Sawyer. I'm Superintendent Tim Bernhardt. Again, to reiterate what we spoke about yesterday, it's a miracle here on Vermont Road. Thankfully, everyone on that helicopter is going to be okay, and they were able to get out, and they're alive. We working with the NTSB. They're in charge of the investigation now. We're here for the support that they need as far as the street here and everything else. The fire department's still here behind us. And again, truly just want to repeat what a miracle. I said yesterday, I can't wait to meet this gentleman, shake his hand, and thank him for all the lives and potential danger that could have occurred here last night. So I don't know if there's any questions or Fire Chief Derek, you want anything?
Have you gotten, are you guys releasing names?
We're not releasing any names, but again, yesterday there was 3 males and the female was the infant on the flight crew.
I see, okay.
Yes.
Have you been able to speak to their, I'm assuming speak to their families?
We have not. We have not spoken to anybody that was on board.
Can you speak about how you're supporting efforts today?
Just as you see here with our support with the barricades, the fire department's here with their apparatus, as well as scene security. We've been here since yesterday and we'll continue to be here until the NTSB is finished with their investigation.
Tim or Derek, is there anything either of you can share with us that maybe you learned since yesterday, maybe from eyewitness accounts or neighbors, or just any sort of interesting piece of information you could share that you didn't know yesterday?
I think the greatest thing is teams working together. How everyone came here from the emergency services for Delaware County, the fire department, our public works, the police department. I mean, whoever thought something like this would occur in Drexel, Hubbard, Arby, Delaware County. So all teams, all hands on deck yesterday, and everything worked well. And we planned for this, we trained for this. Unfortunately, it happened, and we were prepared. So.
And then just, I understand that you guys are cutting off power before it has to be. Is there anything? Is it just going to be the church, or it's a really cold day, so I just wondering if you had anything how long now.
Yeah, it shouldn't have any impact on the residents, and we're going to keep it to as small as grid as possible. But that's not going to happen until they actually start to move the helicopter.
And do we know, I probably should have asked Brian this, but do we know what kind of equipment's going to come in? Have you been given any indication of, like, is this a tow?
I think Chief,
It's just a heavy-duty crane for the most part. Same thing that we use in a construction site. It's just going to be based off the weight of the helicopter.
So the street's shut down at least until that thing's out of here.
That's correct.
And you're hoping to do that by the end of the day today.
That's correct.
And excuse me, Chief, if you wouldn't mind just kind of going back over this, why, specific, give us sort of the specifics, walk us through why you would need to shut down the power as they're removing it.
Well, you want to make sure that when you lift that piece of helicopter, you don't hit any power lines. So we want to de-energize anything in that area that could actually touch those power lines. So if you think about how the aircraft landed, he missed a lot of that, and they're going to have to pick that up, and those power lines need to be de-energized to make sure it's unsafe.
I just wanted to make sure. So there's a daycare affiliated with that church, and there were kids in that daycare when that copter dropped out of the sky there yesterday.
That's correct.
And they were inside. Obviously, they were inside.
Yep. True miracle. True miracle on Vermont Road.
Is this, I mean, and you touched on this yesterday, but, you know, when you come to these kinds of scenes, and certainly when you got the call that there's a helicopter coming down, you know, what, you know, kind of parallel that between what you thought you were encountering?
I won't speak for Derek, but yesterday when I was in police headquarters and the call came out, my heart dropped. And expecting the worst when I got here, I expected a complete catastrophe. You think fire, explosion, you know, injuries, and when we got here, to my surprise, it wasn't as bad as I expected getting here. So I was pleased to see that it ended the way it did.
That's it.
Thanks
For
everyone.
coming out. Appreciate it.
Yep. Be here.
Yeah. So it looks like they'll try and get back at around 4:15. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And, most likely things will not move until later in the day. So just to kind of keep your update.
Very good.
Get warm.
Thank you guys. Yeah, you too.
Thank you.